Hello everyone, my name is Michael and I want to welcome you back to Sovereign Gaming. So here we are, I finally got the SimCity series started and I just wanted to really outline what I envision I will be filming going forward. Basically with this new SimCity, The Sims 3 Create a World build series, which is a mouthful in of itself, what I plan to do is I plan to deliver a lot of time lapses with myself actually in the Create a World tool, as you can see on screen here. And also I'll incorporate some lot building as well. However, Create a World decided to have a mind of its own as I was filming this series, so the lot building is going to be very limited towards the beginning of this series, and I'll explain how I will handle that going forward. Anyways, I also wanted to address a little elephant in the room, and that is the fact that I am indeed early to release this series. Unfortunately, I was affected by some tech layoffs earlier this month, which is why I can deliver on this series a little earlier. Don't worry, it'll be fine, and I'll be fine, and this series will be a positive outlet for me, and I guess for you as well, since you're coming here for a little bit of entertainment. I only wanted to mention this as my schedule could fluctuate at any minute, which is the real unfortunate part of my personal situation that may affect this series, but I will keep you posted on what's going on. Let's talk about something a little more important, and that is actually the bridge that you're seeing on screen right now. And yes, it is the Bridgeport bridge from Late Night expansion pack of The Sims 3. It is my favorite bridge, it is such a strong structural piece, and I really wanted to incorporate this in my SimCity build. I kind of feel like with SimCity there would be elements of water, like either a river or maybe it's an island. I'm kind of deciding that as I go with all of the water work. Anyways, with the bridge, the positioning of it is actually extremely important because it is a huge focal point in the city, and it's something that I'm really going to develop neighborhoods off of. It's going to link both the suburbs and of course the downtown core neighborhoods together within one major piece of road infrastructure. The thing with the Bridgeport bridge that I should mention here is that when it comes to the positioning, it can be a little difficult to work with, especially because I won't be able to export this world until the very end. So I actually won't technically know whether it will work or not. In the past, I have had a lot of luck with the Bridgeport bridge, so I'm kind of hoping that it will turn out in the end when I actually end up uploading the world into my Sims 3 game. When it comes to the geography and the water specifically, and how it interacts with SimCity, I'm actually quite undecided at this time, and I'm actually allowing myself a little bit of room to see how that journey is going to evolve throughout this series. So what that really means is that in this case, I had determined that the water should be a little lower by the bridge because I planned on making that a little bit of a working port area. And so a natural deep sea port would actually make a lot of sense, since that would actually give a reason for people to settle the land. A natural deep sea port is actually kind of rare to find. Like, you'll see other cities really build around their own deep sea ports, since you can actually fit larger ships and shipments. So that was kind of the idea here. I was leaving the water around the bridge at a lower level than what probably going to evolve into the rest of the map. But as I mentioned before, I'm kind of letting the geography, I'm kind of bending the geography to the will of the city and to the will of the layout that I really want to achieve here. I think that other Create a World creators do the opposite. They build their world first and then they add in their lots and their road layouts and whatnot. But here I'm doing it the opposite way, just so that I can guarantee myself that I am able to actually fit in larger lots where I want them. For example, that observatory tower from Into the Future, or the stadium that I want to fill in, fit in, excuse me, those would both take 64 by 64 lots, which is the largest lots in the game. And so by allowing myself the flexibility of building the geography around the city, that helps me to really be able to fit in all of the features that I am looking to fit in. We'll see how it turns out. Like, of course, I am open to feedback, so feel free to drop a comment anytime you like. Speaking of which, the geography of SimCity has been very, I guess, unclear according to the lore. Or at least in my opinion it has been. Maybe I should just do a little more research before I make such a statement. But anyways, my interpretation of SimCity in this case will be that there is probably a lot of diverse geography within the region. I mean, we always have like seasons which depicts a true northern winter, I suppose. But when it comes to SimCity in this case, and what I'm interpreting it as, I'm interpreting that the downtown area and possibly like the suburb across the river or whatever would likely have more of a tropical or temperate feel to it, whereas different elevations that go higher will be depicted as colder temperatures. How that actually plays out though remains to be seen. Even though I am recording this audio clip and the episodes in advance, I haven't even gotten that far at this point, so we'll just have to see if that plays out or if that works. But I definitely want to see some palm trees within the downtown area and also within like some of the surrounding lowland areas. I think it's important to have that kind of hotter weather aspect to it because we've always had palm trees and plantation that is more befitting of warmer climates within the Sims series. So that's something that I want to kind of continue to depict here as well. And as you can tell, like the bridge railing on the screen right now is kind of weird and it's not really like behaving properly for me. I guess this just more speaks to my lack of skill in using Creator World more than anything else. But these bridges were definitely, the railings, excuse me, were definitely something that I wanted to incorporate within the entrance into the downtown area. So I placed them, and of course they aren't straight at all, so you kind of have to, yeah, I had to do something a little funny with them, so it isn't symmetrical at all between the two entrances and both sides of the downtown area. And the insides of it are invisible, but when you look over on the outside, it has the wall there. It's a really strange one, and playing with the terrain a bit on there, I did a little bit of that off camera. When I was playing with the terrain and just kind of coloring it and all that with paint textures, I kind of, I wasn't able to find a solution that was suitable for when you look inside the railings there. So, you know, it might just be one of those imperfections that I have to live with. But if you know a way of how to actually fix the inside and make it so that it isn't invisible, for example, as you've seen multiple times, then feel free to drop a comment. I really don't mind, and eventually I'll go back and actually apply some of the changes based on feedback as well. So I'm more than happy to hear any feedback and any pointers there. The focus of today's episode is really just to set up this entrance into the downtown area and also to place the bridge. The bridge really does set the tone for what the rest of the layout is going to be, so this entrance does hold a significant focal point within the city. And when I finish up with the episode, the focal point is kind of asymmetrical to what the downtown focal point is, which I think I can get away with. I'm not too sure if I actually can, but I actually really enjoyed how it turned out at the end, only because it was asymmetrical, it added a little more intrigue to the city. It suggested that it isn't perfect, and I'm not a perfect builder either, so I was quite happy with the way that things turned out when it came to the entrance and to the bridge and to how Sims will actually get into SimCity. SimCity's core, that is. So yeah, you'll see me fidgeting around a lot with the roads that lead into both sides of the city. For purposes of this build, I consider the orientation of the bridge to be north-south. So these two roads that lead into the city would be west and east, respectively. So the eastern part I felt would make a really great entrance into the port area. So that's kind of what I was going for here, but I do mess around quite a bit with like smoothing terrains and also adjusting the road grades as well. The road grade was actually something that I decided to experiment with in this very episode. I never worked with road grades before, and I would have to say that I probably overthought it here in terms of how to use it. You might see me in this clip, or if not eventually, you'll see me adjust like the number on the grade to like a 5, for example. And in my head, I felt that the 5 represented like a 5% incline or a 5% decline. And you'll also see me like adjust some of the settings. And I just wanted to say here that if you are interested in using the Create a World tool, that you don't need to do that. Just adjust the quality meter and that seems to work. And also like the cell width, that really seemed to work much better for me. And I think I learned that in the next episode or two. When it comes to placing retaining walls, I did have to go through a little bit of an adventure to kind of discover the ones that I wanted to use. Now there's always, and I do end up using it, but there was always one that I always used in all of my Create a World builds in The Sims 3. And unfortunately, I ended up using it as well. Well, I guess not unfortunately, because it seemed to really work for what I wanted. And that was just like a straight, flexible piece that I can use anywhere to depict different heights. With SimCity, and I'm telling you right now, if you hate those retaining walls that I ended up using for the platform that leads into the city, well, I got bad news for you because I use them so often. I use them like candy. And that was one thing that I was really looking for in Life by You, is just seeing if retaining walls were even possible. For me, I'm not great at smoothing heights. Like I'm not very great at adjusting terrain levels and heights and all that and working with different heights in general. But when it comes to using retaining walls, that seems to be my own cheat code for how to actually depict that properly. And you'll see it in my builds as well, because even though we don't have retaining walls, technically speaking, in The Sims 3, we do have foundations. And I use those foundation platforms as retaining walls to use within the actual lot build itself. So more retaining walls, especially within the Create a World build, is on the way. And yeah, I enjoy them. I enjoy the look of them, and I am not really apologizing for them, but I know that I probably have overused them. Oh well. Another thing that I wanted to note as well is that I do have a pretty good computer when it comes to video gaming. Like I spent a significant amount of money on it, so I'm not particularly concerned about reaching an object limit per se. But with that said, this is Create a World, this is EA, this is The Sims 3, like a game that's over 10 years old. So unfortunately, if there are like any hard-coded limits, object limits specifically, then firstly, please drop a comment and let me know what that limit is. And secondly, like if there is no limit, then I'm really not concerned about the performance on my computer. As mentioned before, I actually wasn't able to build as many lots as I would have liked to, and I'll get into that story next episode because it was a bit of a surprise to me anyways. Actually, to be honest, like I made a mistake. Anyways, so I don't end up actually building lots, and I know that in one of my larger previous Create a World builds, I had over 100 lots in there. And I ended up building a lot of those actually in the game after I uploaded and exported the world into the game. So I know that it's not necessarily the world itself that has a lot of data, it's actually the lots within the world that ends up taking up a lot of space in your game. So I'm more concerned about lots than anything else. But if you know of an object limit within Create a World or within creating your own custom world, please again just drop that comment. Make sure you like that comment if someone else dropped it, and yeah, we'll certainly look at it and take it into consideration. But I am trying to be very conscious about like how many objects I'm using, and unfortunately the downtown core is just going to take a lot of objects to use. It's got a lot of concentrated areas that I wanted to build out, and so these retaining walls, although there are many there are many of these retaining walls that I end up using even in our earlier episodes, they are something that I felt I needed to use. So it wasn't like I was just using them for the sake of using them. I felt that they were extremely necessary in the SimCity depiction that I wanted to depict. When it comes to the road layouts, on the other hand, like it is kind of disappointing that we really technically only get one road unless we're looking into downloading some custom road assets. Speaking of which, whenever I get to it, which is in the far future in this series, I did download some custom textures for a dirt road, so I'll have to see if I'm even able to get that working and looking properly, but I digress. Anyways, when it comes to the roads themselves, I really wanted to depict some wider roads. So when I get to actually building out the city layout itself, I will designate like a couple of roads as avenues per se, so just pretty much two roads side by side each other. And I measured out the squares in between the roads so that it's always consistent throughout the city, or sorry, throughout the region. It's something I would continue throughout the region no matter what. So yeah, with these roads, I just wanted to get a little creative with them and to get that going as well. By the way, something to keep in mind, like when I was speaking about objects, is that streetlights are also an object that you have to manually place, and it is incredibly tedious to do. So I usually save streetlights for last. In the case of the bridge and for the roads that lead into the city, I haven't even put in streetlights because that layout could change depending on how I see the rest of the build turning out to be. So I will not put in streetlights unless I know for sure that I'm keeping the roads, because they're just so tedious to work with. And you'll see as the series goes on, like how much time is actually invested in adjusting each of your streetlights so that they match each other. And also, like when it comes to roads, there are traffic lights as well that I've got to manage, and those can get complicated, especially for the avenue interchanges. Anyways, I'm done talking about roads because not everybody is a fan of roads and all that, but they do make up, actually they are one of the most significant pieces of infrastructure within a city in real life, period. But in this case, they are also, again, a significant part of infrastructure within the city. Anyways, moving on, one thing that I really wanted to depict within this SimCity series is really kind of depicting that old money versus new money. So with that old money, we have the GOTS, the land grabs, and the crumple bottoms, and new money, as far as I'm aware, is just the altos when they were introduced back in The Sims 3. I could be wrong here on my lore. I'm not the best when it comes to Sims lore, so feel free to sound off in the comments again if there is like a certain story that needs to be told within SimCity. Anyways, the whole point of having like that old money versus new money is that I think that it really helps to influence some of the neighborhoods that I am hoping to build within the SimCity series here. So I've already alluded to the fact that I'm going to have a downtown core no matter what. That's probably going to be full of high rises and a bunch of commercial buildings and probably high rise bars and all that. Again, I will build those on camera once I've actually exported the world at this point. So we can look forward to that in the in the future. I don't want to say the near future, but in the future we can look forward to that. But I was also taking into consideration within this road layout, like what other neighborhoods that they could lead into. Granted, this is only the downtown city layout, so I wanted to keep a strict grid so that I can actually work off of the grid. Now this grid isn't final at all. It could change depending on what I actually want to put within the downtown area. So for example, if I wanted a 64 by 64 lot, then that changes the rest of the block. So even though downtown right now is pretty much a strict grid, it is likely to change in the future, and I do end up making some changes further on down the line as well. And also, working with the roads isn't the most intuitive thing in the world when using the Create a World tool. Like, I'm sure that you've already noticed that I'm not the best or the most graceful when it comes to using the Create a World tool, and you know, that's okay. This was literally me picking up Create a World shortly. This is me picking up Create a World, excuse me, like years after not using it. So I was just really going off of muscle memory at this point, but I really do think that I do regain a little bit of finesse by the end of this episode here. But yeah, roads just remain not easy to work with. I really just don't think that they were made intuitively. And by the way, I don't want to harp on the Create a World tool too much, because I kind of feel like I really have a suspicion here that somebody probably just put in a whole bunch of overtime to get this tool out to the players. It never moved out of the beta test, it's not called a beta test, but the beta stage, excuse me. It never moved out of the beta stage into something that EA would claim was official. So yeah, something tells me that this was just like a tool that somebody put in a lot of effort and time to just release out to the public. And you know, the fact that it remains somewhat updated and stuff and working is actually something that I'm very impressed by. Granted, you can't get it off the EA website. You'll have to go to Mod the Sims, and I do. I'll post a link in the description for where to actually get it, or in the comment section. So look in both places. But yeah, laying down the roads themselves is not great. It's not easy to do. It's just very tedious, much like the streetlights that I mentioned earlier before. And yeah, there are going to be some imperfections within this Create a World build. I never claimed to be a super great master at Create a World. In fact, I consider myself like advanced in terms of like create a world building in The Sims 3. I consider myself advanced, but not but not talented, if that makes any sense. So yeah, those rocks are definitely there to hide some imperfections. And I don't even get into decorating the platform here, just because I'm sort of saving that for last, or at a point where I know that I want to actually, or to a point like where I know that the platform and everything is going to stay for sure. And to be fair, like it honestly stayed like that throughout all of the episodes that I have already recorded, so it doesn't change much, but those rocks are definitely there to hide imperfections in the terrain. And I'm not afraid to show that to you guys. So yeah, if you were coming here expecting Michelangelo style work, you've come to the wrong place. I am only okay at create a world building. So yeah, and also while I'm here, let's talk about the ground textures as well, like the grass and what's underneath the water and all that. Again, because I'm not like totally set on what I want to choose as the default grass texture on this portion of the world, I've kept it the default that Create a World loaded up with for now, and same goes to the water textures as well. I have downloaded the sunlit tides ground textures, including the beach and the water, so bright blue water is certainly on the way, but I'm terrible at water, so I'll have to really look out for some references on that. But yeah, when it comes to the actual textures themselves, I don't actually paint anything any different color except for maybe the concrete. And the concrete is something I'm very comfortable with painting because because I guess it's boring, much like myself, but also because the concreted areas are areas that I know I will never have grass on for those lots. So that's really the selective texture painting there. I probably will do an episode dedicated entirely to water and geography and making things more beautiful. But right now, what I'm really looking for is function. And yeah, eventually we do get into beautifying the downtown area, or at least one area of the downtown. I won't spoil it a little bit later on. But for now, I'm just looking for function. I'm looking for some strong bones to actually build out from for this episode. I think I got a little distracted when I was originally talking about storytelling, and I ended up just talking about more infrastructure and stuff like that. But yeah, when it comes to the storytelling of SimCity, I'm really looking to tell the story of several different neighborhoods. So clearly everything towards the east and the lower east side, I suppose, is certainly something that I wanted to be a little more industrial. And I'll actually say it now, I wanted that industrial area, which turned out to be kind of small, but extremely functional. I was really happy with it, if I'm going to be completely honest. I wanted that industrial area to be flanked by Old Town, which was something that was introduced in The Sims 1. And I loved Old Town. I thought it was very charming. And it had its own, it has its own like architectural style in The Sims 1, being that it takes a lot from the French Quarter of New Orleans. And that is certainly an aspect of storytelling that I wanted to bring into SimCity as well, is just kind of staying true to the roots and really making this world build an homage and a big thank you to EA and the team that worked to put out such a great game as The Sims 3. And you know, the story of Old Town was something that I think is relatively forgotten about. I don't think it made an appearance in The Sims 2. It was only ever referenced to, same with The Sims 3. And so I would like to actually build out an Old Town neighborhood that kind of flanks that industrial neighborhood as well, so that it kind of makes sense as the first place that they would found in SimCity being Old Town and the industry. So you have both the jobs, a place to live and shop. So, and the port, of course. So yeah, that was my idea here with designing this portion of this street layouts and all that. And those are the kind of stories that I do want to tell within this Sims series build. And that'll carry over, of course, to the lots. So the lots in Old Town, for example, are going to take inspiration from the French Quarter in New Orleans and that kind of architecture there. So yeah, that will help to make our neighborhoods a lot more diverse, and also just a lot more interesting, and an interesting game overall. Like I mentioned before, I'm not the best with hills, so sometimes connecting like avenues to other avenues directly on a hill isn't exactly in my wheelhouse, but I made it happen anyways. But yeah, you can see me play around with that road grade tool a little bit, and again, if you are using the road grade tool, I suggest only adjusting the quality slider and then adjusting your cell width as well. You can see those options there. That was a lesson that I learned in one of the upcoming episodes. It's either the next episode or the one after. So learn the lesson here because when you start messing around with the actual grade numbers and all that, I just find that it wasn't as effective. It's not that it didn't work, it's just that it wasn't as effective or as graceful as I wanted it to be. But yeah, we actually move into something a little more important at this point, and that is actually some more of the layouts of the harbor neighborhood that I was speaking about before. So essentially, the story that I'm telling here with the bridge is that it's a naturally deep sea port. And so because that is a rarity really to have a natural deep sea port, I really wanted to base the port and harbor neighborhood off of this. And instead of it being like a touristy harbor or something of the sort, I actually wanted it to be a lot more industrial. And so these wharf buildings that I end up placing were just absolutely perfect to kind of depict that. Now I flank it with some larger lots right beside it, and I've got some plans for that, and you'll actually see those lot builds come to life. But at the end of the episode, you'll actually see what the finished product is. So there's kind of like a spoilers in here anyways, but I'm not too worried about it because I will explain exactly what those lots will be like and how those builds come about and what the inspirations were for those builds. So yeah, you can see it just kind of come together here with the wharf and with the wharf buildings, excuse me, and just with everything else. And that is pretty much the layout of the harbor. I didn't want it to be too large. I didn't want the industrial area to be too overpowering. As much as I love industrial areas, and I think that they actually add a lot of, they add a really great dynamic to a city. This was just something that, you know, I wanted to only, I didn't want to focus on too much because there aren't a lot of expansion packs based around ports or harbors, or well, I guess Island Paradise, but that was not an industrial harbor. And so yeah, because this one had a more of an industrial theme to it, I just wanted to put the I just wanted to tell the story enough for it to make sense. And yeah, I will also be adding in a couple of other lots that I feel are well suited for the harbor area as well. If you noticed, I did place a lot under the bridge. Now, I don't actually end up building on it, and I definitely don't have official plans for it. Originally, I was gonna ask my subscribers and our watchers like what they think it should be, but as you'll learn in the next episode, that won't exactly be possible to actually build on, not until I've actually got the world completed and exported into my game, which, by the way, I'm not looking forward to, just because exporting Create a World worlds is like, if you screw it up, it's really it can get really messy and really complicated. So yeah, anyways, so that lot under the bridge is certainly not something that I have any plans for, but I definitely wanted a little something under the bridge. I feel like it's too cool of a location not to just place a little something under. I was thinking about maybe making it into a supernatural hangout, or even just a regular old salty dive bar of some kind. It could even be a warehouse apartment complex, like a repurposed warehouse. Or, you know, even container homes, because we're right near the port. They could just be like a container home yard, I suppose. But yeah, if you have any suggestions for what could be built under that bridge for that lot, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. But I will take official polls when I'm actually at the time to start building within that lot. But it's something to just kind of keep in the back of your mind as we progress through the series. Before I forget, this was something very important to me, was determining what the scale should be. So you'll see me just kind of experimenting with different buildings in the different size lots there. I've got a 50 by 50, a 64 by 64, a 40 by 40, and a 30 by 30. I actually ended up going with 50 by 50 lots as the standard, just to help fit the larger late night shell buildings in there. I felt that, you know, I'd rather have more space to work with than not enough. And in the past, I believe I've used like 40 by 40 lots, and I just felt like it was too cramped for the space that I needed to put in some of the shell buildings. So I didn't want to limit my choice in terms of like which shell building should go where. And so yeah, I ended up doing a 50 by 50 lot, and I chose that as the standard to build the downtown grid off of. We are coming up to the end here, and yes, I do have a lot of store items. I was purchasing store items like way back when, so this was like a collection that's years and years old. One of my favorite worlds to actually download is the Roaring Heights set. That set is just beautiful, and absolutely get the boardwalk lot as well, because that is just phenomenal. And that's something that I'm going to incorporate in the SimCity build as well, is actually the boardwalk lot as it is. Sometimes I feel that the lots that EA built for The Sims 3 are actually pretty great and perfect as is. So I'm not afraid to actually use them in my SimCity series here. So sometimes you'll see a little bit of that. I might make a few adjustments here and there, but overall, like, there are some lots like the Roaring Heights roller coaster lot that I think is great. So you can certainly expect to see that with some adjustments make their way into the city here. Where it will end up, though, is something that I will save for a future episode. So yeah, with all of that said, I just wanted to thank you for watching, for coming on to this journey with me, for building the SimCity world within the Sims 3's Create a World tool, excuse me. It has been great to just record and just chill and just have a conversation with you guys about the work that I'm doing on The Sims 3, not in real life, because that's an issue. But but all jokes aside, I just wanted to thank you again for watching. And you know, if you would really like to help this channel out, then feel free to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It helps me out. I am always happy to hear from you guys, and I hope you've been entertained for the last little bit or so. Anyways, look out for more SimCity series videos. What's coming up next are actually going to be the lot builds that you briefly see here. And yes, I do get better at doing tours and as the series goes on. So that was a production note for myself that I gave there. Anyways, thanks again, and please enjoy the rest of your day.